Today we are going to present our project Decentralized Real Estate Marketplace. In today's world, the real estate industry is amongst the top industries in terms of money influx. As beneficial as it is, these benefits come at a cost. A lot of real estate agents are involved in financial frauds and scams. These scams affect a lot of buyers who lose their hard-earned money, which makes this market extremely risky to step in. The problems with the current paper contracts are held securely by third-party companies during a mortgage or after the completion of one, because these paper contracts define the ownership. If these contracts are lost, it means the property is no longer yours. A paper contract can be manipulated and forged, which allows fraudsters to sell a piece of land or property to multiple parties. These contracts often degrade over time, resulting in loss of information, which ultimately results in losing the ownership rights. Now, what is the solution to all of this? The solution lies in decentralized applications. In order to eliminate these problems from the industries, we have designed a decentralized app in order to maintain, track, and transparency of transactions in the real estate market. Our application stores the property details securely with all the information encrypted. This eliminates the need for security from third parties. Encryption prevents the manipulation of data. Since blockchain technology keeps an impermeable record of the information, it can never be manipulated and keeps these records as they were originally intended. Our application also solves the problem of degradation of paper contracts, which means the loss of ownership. Our application also helps in renting of property. This is our real estate marketplace. Your account number is shown on the nav bar. You can now list properties for rent or for sale. You can also buy properties which are on sale or rent properties. Suppose we want to list a property for sale. We add the title as 7 BHK apartment, fully furnished, address Mumbai, pin code something. Rent is suppose the rent is 40 ethers and the price for the property is 50 ethers. We then add this property to the blockchain. The transaction was successful, and then we can see our property listed in the see listings section here. Now suppose I want to buy this property. Since I already own this property, I cannot buy it. If we use another account, we can buy this property for 50 ethers. I click on buy property. MetaMask shows a confirmation of transaction of 50 ethers. The transaction was successful. We can see that MetaMask shows that 50 ethers have been deducted from my account, and these ethers would be transferred to the owner's account. The price is now 150 ethers. Now since I own this property, I cannot buy it. Suppose I want to list another property. We can go back. MetaMask asks for a confirmation. We can see our property listed in the listing section. Since I own this property, I cannot buy it. Suppose I change the account to someone else. Now I can buy this property. It is owned by this address. MetaMask shows the transaction details of 57 ethers being transferred to the owner's account. In my wallet, I can see that there has been a deduction of 57 ethers. The transaction was successful. Now let us list a property for renting. Add the title, description, address, pin code, the price for renting per month, that is 5 ethers, the average block time, and the duration. MetaMask asks for gas fees and deducts it from our wallet. Now we can see our property being listed. Suppose now I should set the tenant for the property. MetaMask takes the gas charge for setting up the tenant. Now to pay the rent, I change my account. The options are automatically changed to pay rent. I click on pay rent and then enter the number of months I want to pay the rent for. Suppose I want to pay the rent for 1 month. The rent for 1 month was 5 ethers. These 5 ethers are deducted from my account and transferred to the owner's account. As you can see, the transaction was successful. 5 ethers have been deducted from my account and sent to the seller's account.
In this section, we will check out renting of properties. Here we have a smart contract representing a property. In the contract, we have the block time, which is the average time difference between the addition of two blocks. Then we have monthly blocks, giving us the number of blocks added in a month. Duration and duration blocks give us the cap set by the owner for tenure in months and a number of blocks respectively. Monthly rent is the rent of the property set by the owner for a month. Begin rent is the block number from which a tenant is renting the place, and occupied till gives us the block number till the place is occupied. Next, we have the addresses of the owner and the tenant. Also, we have a mapping for mapping the address of a tenant to the block number he or she has rented the property. Coming to the constructor, which takes in address and average block time. Using these, we assign the owner the block time and the monthly blocks. We set the cap of property being rented for 12 months, which is later on changeable by the owner. After that, we have the modifiers to restrict the usage of the functions of different users. Moving on to the functions, we have 3 functions for an owner. The first one is add tenant, which allows the owner to add a tenant. Second is advance rent. In this, the maximum cap on the number of months a tenant can live in the property is set. Lastly, we have set rent, which is used to set the rent for the property for 30 days. In way, the tenant has only one function, that is to pay the rent. The number of months is the tenant wants to pay the rent for is given as the parameter. The due rent and the number of blocks for which the tenant will rent the place are calculated. Then we check if the contract's value is equivalent to this due rent and the blocks are lesser than the cap blocks set by the owner. After that, we have 5 cases as given here, and each case is handled precisely. So now we compile the code here, and as we see, there are no errors. It's properly working. Let me just see the console logs once. Yeah, it is not giving any errors, so we can go ahead and successfully deploy the contract. So we are on the deployment page, and as you can see, I have like 10 demo, around roughly 10 demo accounts. I will use the first one as the owner and the following two as the tenants. So first thing, in order to deploy this account, we need to provide an address and an average block time, where the address will be belonging to the owner, because we had these two parameters in the constructor. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this address, and I'm gonna paste it here. As we can see, it is 0x5b38, and it's the same value here. Sorry about that. I'm going to keep the block time to be 13 seconds, as in Ethereum usually it's 13 seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and click on transact. As you can see, it ran successfully, the constructor, and there is a deployed contract now, and there is one transaction recorded, so the constructor worked perfectly. Now in this we can see our four functions. These three are the first two and the last one is for owners only, and the third one, the parent function, is for tenants. So yeah, so now as the contract is now deployed, I will set the duration cap to be 4 months, and I'm going to click on advance rent, and as we can see it was set to 4. Then I will go ahead and set the rent to be 5 Ethereum. Now as we saw in the previous part, that the set rent function requires an input in W-I-E. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a 5 ether into this unit converter, and we got this value in V. I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna paste it here, and then I'm gonna run the set rent function. So now we have run the function. Now we can go ahead and click on the monthly rent option, and we'll get the same value. Now in order to add the tenant, we're gonna sorry about that, we're gonna search up the account, we're gonna take this and copy the value. Now first we will try to do it using a non-owner address. So as we know, it should give an error because we are using this only owner modifier in the add tenant function. So as I click on this, we get an error. So I'm quickly going to go and switch it to this tab, which is the owner tab. As we saw, we can also see the owner right here, 0x5v3, right? And now I'm going to click on add tenant. It successfully added the tenant. Now in order to pay the rent, I have to go to the tenant's account. Now I have this tenant's account loaded. I have to write in the number of months for which I have to pay the rent for, as we saw in the previous part. So now I'm gonna go and put 2 months. So 2 months and 5 ether per month. So this is basically 5 ether. So for 2 months it will be 10 ether. So I'm gonna go and put the value as 10, and I'm gonna change this to ether. So this should work perfectly, and let me just gonna go and click parent. As we see that this was successfully done with the value of 10 ether, and if you see closely, it was 99.99 ether before, and now it is 89.99 ether, and the owner account has 109.99 ether, which is like the 10 ether got credited into his account, from which was debited from the tenant's account. Now if we see this, we check the begin rent. So it was a 5th block on which it started, right? So let's check the duration. Duration was 4 as we set it before, and duration in blocks was this. Now per monthly blocks is 199384. So basically just multiplying this by 4 will give us this duration blocks, as duration is 4 months. So this will give us this value. And now we will check occupied till. So if we see, this is 199384 into 2. So it's basically showing us that for blocks worth of 2 months, this thing is acquired by the tenant. Now we can see the tenant currently is this, and yeah, that is pretty much it. But now in case another tenant comes in and says like, I want to take part in this. So as we saw, the begin rent was 5, and it was still occupied till 398773. So let's just quickly go to the third person, which will be the second tenant, and copy this address. Now we're gonna shift back to the owner and change the tenant to this guy. I'll quickly call the add tenant function, and now if I see the tenant, we can see the value change to 0x4b, right? So now I'm gonna go and click on the third account, and I'm going to pay the rent for, say, let's keep it 2 months only, right? So now we can go ahead and put 10 ether here as our value, and we can run the pay rent function. It was successfully done, and we can see that 89.999 ether is the new balance for this, and 119 ether for the owner account. Now if I go and if I check rent paid until, we have to pass an argument which will be our new tenant 0x4b2099, and if I check this, so it shows 797541, and if I remove this and I put the second account, which is the first tenant, if I put this account, I get 398773. So we can calculate that for approximately 4 lakh blocks, this for approximately 4 lakh blocks, the first tenant will be staying, and after that, as the tenant was changed, then for the next 4 lakh blocks, another tenant will stay, and the rest of the things will be almost the same, but if we click on occupied till, we get this, and if I click on begin rent, I get this. This is precisely where the first one ended. As you can see, like I'm currently using the third account, this is precisely where the second account or the first tenant ended its tenure. So this will be basically the whole calling procedure for this. So we checked it for the correct cases. Now let us check in one of the cases where the whole thing will fail. So I'm currently on the second tenant, and I'm going to go ahead and pay rent for 4 months or 5 months. Let's say 5 months. If I'm going to pay rent for 5 months, which will be 25 ether, so I go ahead and put in 25 ether, but this should pop me an error because the maximum cap on the number of months was set at 4 months by the owner. So it will give me an error here because due to this part of the require statement, additional blocks should be lesser than equal to duration blocks. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on pay rent. Yes, I got an error here because of this require message, and we got the reason provided by the contractors check the rent because we were providing this message in case this require message fails. Now in case we want to still put in the rent for 2 months, but the tenant tries to be tricky and just pays in 5 ether, which is the rent for 1 month. In this case also we'll get the same error because the message value is not equal to the rent due. If I go ahead and click on pay rent, it still gave me the same error. So either I can just go ahead and put 10 here and click on pay rent, then it will sorry about that. And we can get it. We can see that 10 ethers was deposited in this account, was debited from this account, and it was credited to the owner's account. Either we can do that, or we can just reduce the number of months we have to stay for, and we can still use it with 5 ether, and it won't give us any errors. There we go, and we can see that 5 ethers was further deducted.
In this part, we are going through the escrow script which we had used in our project. We are having 4 states, namely not initialized, awaiting payment, awaiting delivery, and complete. Initially, the state is not initialized. Now moving on to the modifier, we are having modifier only buyer, which ensures that only buyer has access to the method. Now our constructor accepts three parameters: address of buyer, address of seller, and the price of the property. Moving on to the functions, we have init contract, which is to initiate the contract. As soon as both the buyer and seller initiates the contract, the state is changed to awaiting payment. Now the function deposit, which allows buyer to deposit its fund to the contract. State is changed to awaiting delivery. As soon as the product is being delivered to the buyer, with the help of confirm delivery function, funds are released from the contract to the seller. In case the product is never been delivered to the buyer, he can withdraw his money back with the help of withdraw function.